going on, Crypto Land? My name is Phil. This is the Fun with Crypto podcast. We are in season 2, and this is episode 20. Well, I hope everybody's had a great week. We've got another awesome interview tonight. Joining us, we have the BitcoinRabbi. He's got a great book out that explains Bitcoin really simply, so simple a kid can understand it, which is totally awesome. Here's my interview with the BitcoinRabbi. All right, Crypto Land, here we are. We've got another great interview, and with us we've got the BitcoinRabbi, or the BitcoinRabbi, however you want to pronounce it. That's how you can find him on Twitter. And he also wrote a incredible Bitcoin book called Bitcoin Money, A Tale of Bitville Discovering Good Money. I actually didn't find him through his book. I actually found him through a lot of his posts on Twitter, and it was just, they're very down to earth, and I just appreciated his material. So I'm really happy that he can join me on my show. And without further ado, BitcoinRabbi, how you doing?
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really glad to be on the show, and I appreciate those are some very kind words. I said, some rabbis have big synagogues with several hundreds of congregants, but I have my community is my Twitter congregation, and I try and put out messages that I think are universal and kind of upbeat. And so I that can speak to anybody of, different religions and different backgrounds and stuff. So thank you for listening and reading and having me on.
That's awesome. And I truly appreciate it. Okay, so look, I think all the listeners want to know. I definitely want to know. What is the rabbit hole story? How does the BitcoinRabbi become the BitcoinRabbi?
Well, okay, so first you start off as a rabbi. That's definitely the first step, which is I am an ordained rabbi. I lived in Israel for 4 years, where I studied in yeshiva, which is a rabbinical school, and was ordained did the study and passed the test and was ordained as a rabbi. And I have been a teacher. I teach in a Jewish school for the past 6 or 7 years. So that's how I fulfill my capacity. I'm not like a pulpit rabbi with a position, with my own synagogue, but I serve on the board of a synagogue, and I kind of help out where I'm needed there. So I always, had an interest in, I guess you could say, like, libertarian leaning philosophy of freedom and free markets, and a lot of that can be found in Jewish legal texts. There's the Talmud, which is the book which goes through all of the various agricultural laws and financial laws and all of those things, and I noticed that there is a lot of legalistic things about property, and anywhere in the Torah where money is mentioned, it's hard assets like gold and silver. So from a Jewish perspective, I kind of thought that sound money was a virtuous thing to have. It leads to long-term, low time frame preference. Although I didn't have that vocabulary when I was just contemplating these things. So that kind of my background. It was I wouldn't say that every single rabbi and every single person who interprets the Torah is going to come at it this way, but that's how I definitely saw it, and that's just the way that my mind worked. So in the earlier days of Bitcoin, I did not have any even word of it. The only thing is that I maybe saw like a headline at some point during a crash, Bitcoin internet, play money is crashing. Suicide hotlines. Your life is more important than internet magical money. So that didn't really interest me that much at the time. I didn't really look into it much more than then. And then it was really in the run up in 2017 that I was started, paying attention to it. My older brother, who lives in Israel, and he is in the tech community there in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. There's a very high tech community and also a very crypto focused community as well. A lot of projects coming out of Israel, and so he introduced me to Bitcoin. And boy, when you realize, 6 hours into Andreas Antonopoulos videos, how that this actually works, and that it's real, and that there's a limited supply, and that it's, going to change everything. It's quite mind blowing. So I really, really love the idea. And just started learning everything that I could. I followed, so I got in really after the UASF. So like after the split, the hard fork and Bcash and all of that. But I was really there during the S2X movement, and I just couldn't, it was so hard to find out what was going on and what everything meant. And that's when I really put my head into it and was like, I've got to figure this out. And that's when I got, started understanding nodes and how the decentralization worked. And so I just kept, the more you learn about it, the more exciting it is, the more there is. And then this whole year was, or 2018 and late 2019 was figuring out Lightning Network. And so I've got my node up I had my own Lightning node that I got from Pierre Richard's node launcher, and then when I had to set up my website to start accepting payments to sell this book, I actually set up a BTC Pay server, which was amazing for me because I'm not an extremely technical person, not a coder, not a command line kind of guy. So the fact that I was able to do it with minimal difficulty and with some very generous help of people like Nicola Dorier and the whole community there, it's been a lot of fun. And so I've got to meet a bunch of people, and I like, so that's it. You start off as a rabbi, and then I just have been really loving the Bitcoin community, and I've loved the embrace, you could say, of a lot of people in the community. I went to a meetup in the NYC Bitcoiners meetup in Brooklyn, actually a few weeks ago, and it was so generous of them. It usually is on a Friday night, which is the Sabbath, which I don't go out or use electronics or anything like that. And so they moved it to a Sunday evening. They put it on a Sunday at a kosher restaurant,
awesome.
and had me, and I got to meet a bunch of Bitcoiners, and that's just been great. And I will be going to my second thing. I'm going to the Magical Crypto Conference in a week and a half. So I'm going to be meeting a lot more people. So it's just, it's been a great ride. And I try to combine my, knowledge of Judaism and Torah and my knowledge of Bitcoin and see where they overlap and see what things I can teach Bitcoiners about interesting things that Judaism kind of perspective has to have, and teach Bitcoiners about, teach Jewish people in my community the interesting technological and economic things that Bitcoin has to offer.
That's really, really amazing. And it totally sounds like, so it actually sounds like you and I came in to the space at around the same time, because I came in right before the Bcash fork. So that was probably before we hit the run up, let's say the $400 to $700 region of Bitcoin, before it really started to take off.
Yeah, when it hit, I think when it was passing 1K is when my brother really was like, hey, you got to check this out. It's going crazy.
But I also noticed that you mentioned, so it's interesting that you mentioned low time preference, right? Because of course I as well, it wasn't part of my vocabulary before I got into Bitcoin. But to your point, let's just say it's always something that you've had. It's something that maybe you were taught or that you learned, and now we're just able to put a name to it,
Yeah, but absolutely, and but you don't even realize also how fiat money has an effect on it, and I didn't really think about it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Saifedean Ammous's book, The Bitcoin Standard.
Oh
It
yeah.
was very influential, I mean, I've got that book. I also really, I mean, he won't be so happy that I'm a big fan of his book, or that rather I think that it influenced me. But I really like Peter Schiff's book. Have you ever read How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes? It's like a comic book / kind of thing that was very influential to me. And it's also about hard money and about fiat and, banks and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately haven't read Peter Schiff's work, but I have read the Bitcoin Standard, and of course I have a copy. So yeah, his book is definitely like I think it's going to be one of those things going forward that anybody who starts their journey not only reads the white paper and not only like reads the the Bitcoin talk, the exchanges from Satoshi himself, but also ends up having to read the Bitcoin Standard.
Well, I'm and I hope that that anybody who doesn't have the time or isn't yet dedicated to reading the 250 pages or give or take of the Bitcoin Standard will at least start with my book, with Bitcoin Money, which doesn't cover all of those things in depth, but I think that it kind of paints a similar picture of it answers the question. This is what I tried to put in the book, was why Bitcoin? Why is this thing Bitcoin, and why is it good money? And so it starts with, what is money? Why do we need money? What makes good money? How did we get to, the system that we're in now? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of fiat, and how does Bitcoin solve that? Bitcoin in particular. So that is, that's what I go through in my book. And it really started from when what I've been doing over the past year really was building a speech, a presentation rather, that I give to like youth groups, college groups of Jewish organizations. I've given it a few times now, called Bitcoin and Judaism. And so the main thing really is that the main thing that talks about is like, how do we get to this financial system that we're in now? And so I go through the history of money and all of that, the history of money in Jewish law. And so that's I had all of these ideas and going through Saifedean's book. And then I was like, you know what? I've got this condensed down to like a presentation that I can do for college students. Let me try and condense it down even more, because I've got 5 kids. The oldest one is 7 years old. And so her birthday is today. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, she just turned 7.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. And so I talk to the kids all the time about Bitcoin. They see it, they know it. And I wanted to take these ideas and like really compress it down to a level that both my 7-year-old can understand, but also my senior father, who can also understand, who he's told me he was able to understand Bitcoin better by reading this little kid's book than me trying to knock it into his head for the past 2 years. So that was a great compliment, I thought.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. So tell me, the book that you wrote, because that's actually what I was going to touch on next. Bitcoin Money: A Tale of Bitville Discovering Good Money. Okay, what really drove you to write that book? Like,
Yeah,
what was it?
I felt that there was nothing in the space. I actually that did it. I mean, there are some cute and beautiful children's books about Bitcoin if you look on Amazon, but they're kind of stories that have Bitcoin in them. And I wanted a book that was an explainer about Bitcoin in a similar way that the Bitcoin Standard does that. It tries to explain the how we got to the money system that we're in now and the faults of it, and explain that into a way that little kids could get. So it starts with it's a story. It's like an allegory about these kids in a little town named Bitville. And it goes through like economic principles that I think are like inherent to most people that they can understand, like specialization. It starts off with the idea that each kid has some special talent that they can do, entrepreneurship, and also charity, and then explains barter and the attributes of money, like divisibility, portability, uniformity, what else? Durability, and I'm forgetting one or two.
But still, that's incredible.
Yeah, and limited supply, I guess, is the most arguably one of the most important ones. So it goes through that, and then a few boys realize that they can just print their own money, and things go pretty awry from there. So like, and then I address like altcoins, and try and explain why I think Bitcoin is really the solution, at least from a monetary sense. I mean, people can do whatever they want and try and figure out whatever other things they want to do, but from a monetary sense, I think that Bitcoin solves that problem. So that's what I want to do. I wanted to make a book that anybody can pick up. It's a one sitting book. It's a 5 to 10 minute read that you can read if you're 7 years old, if you're 90 years old, and if you've never heard of Bitcoin before, you'll get up from there and say, I don't know if I'm 100% into it, but I understand why somebody is. I understand why now somebody believes Bitcoin.
I really think it's amazing, and you know what? I don't know if you know who Dan Held is. You probably do.
Yeah, I mean, just from Twitter, Dan Hedl.
Oh yeah,
as he is written on Twitter. Yeah, I do. I like his writings. I follow him. I quote unquote Twitter like his stuff a lot.
That's awesome, and I do as well. And one of the things that he mentioned was the narrative compression, and he believes that one of the things that he believes is that when the narrative for Bitcoin gets compressed enough, that's when like the most people are going to get it, and it's going to reach kind of that moment. And I think that the work that you produced is in that spirit, in compressing that narrative and making it easier for the average person. Because look, I think you said it yourself, it's like you shouldn't have to be an IT guy to be able to get into Bitcoin, like
yeah, or an economist, professor as well. I mean, I think
that's
that
right.
The idea is so basic. I mean, think about if you were to ask people to choose what kind of money they would like to choose for themselves, nobody would ever vote for fiat. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. I mean, nobody ever voted for it in the first place. It was kind of thrust upon the world. So given when people really understand it, which I think it's just natural, they just need to have the words in front of them. They'll choose the money that's better because it's just so simple.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And to your point, if somebody is presented with the truth about fiat, or the truth about any inflationary currency versus a deflationary currency, I think that they'll make the decision to have something that has lasting value, or at least preserves its value for them in the future. So
yeah, totally.
Okay, well look, let me ask you this now. How long have you been running your node for?
Well, let's see. My Bitcoin node started probably right after the failure of S2X, when SegWit2X was called off.
Cool.
That's because I didn't signal or anything. I didn't fully understand at that point. But in the heat of that was when I was really researching, trying to understand. So shortly after that time is when I started running, just my own node on my on an external hard drive next to my laptop. And then it basically sat there not doing much for a year until Pierre's node launcher, which then added a Lightning node to your regular node, to your Bitcoin Core node. So once I had Lightning, then I was doing a lot of experimenting and, opening up channels. And so that was, I guess, December of 2018, I think, is when he launched that. And now I'm on I've had the fun experience of setting up my BTC Pay server node that is powering my online store. And it's been a great experience. And also not besides just running the node and opening channels and getting liquidity and setting that all up, I've also got to see like how people actually using Lightning Network. I mean, it's amazing. People are making like $100 payments on Lightning, routing, like doing a few hops even. And so seeing that it's actually working and that people want to do it, like people get a real kick out of doing Lightning payments. So a lot of people have been purchasing the book with Lightning, and it's been fun to watch that.
That's really fantastic. I'm gonna go and definitely check out the book. So
yeah, if anyone wants to, I mean, we can mention it later, but I'll just say now it's BitcoinMoneyBook.com. Anyone can pick it up there. It's U.S., Canada, Mexico, Europe, Australia, most countries. Based on where I can ship to. And it's also on Amazon. If you just look up Bitcoin Money Book or Bitcoin Children's Book, you'll find it pretty easily.
We're going to also provide a link to the book in the show notes as well.
Great.
And so let me ask you this, because like you were talking about opening channels, I also I have a Casa node, and I have 3 Raspi blitzes, which one of them is in a bad state right now, and the other one is still brand new and coming online. So I've got 2 Raspi blitzes online.
Oh, that's great.
But so let me ask you this: how do you find your experience with doing the payments? I mean, like I've done a couple of different ones, like for the Boltathon. I got tickets to that, and I got to watch some speakers, and that went really smoothly. So how do you find your experience?
So it's gotten so much better over the past few months. My first experience was I had to go out and buy some Blockstream stickers. That was like the first thing that was available on. I mean, besides, I guess I might have drawn on Satoshi's place first, but actually I wanted to get something tangible. I wanted to hold something in my hands that I paid for with Lightning. So I bought those stickers and was very excited about that. And I hope that people are feeling the same way. I'm pretty sure that I have gotten responses from people saying that buying my book with Lightning is the first physical, tangible thing that they are getting. So I was surprised by how much inbound liquidity that I would be getting, because with Lightning, to receive payments, you have to have inbound liquidity. So you start off with 0 when you just open up a new node, and then you have to basically either trade with people or you can buy some liquidity. So I went way overboard, and I got like 50 million Satoshis or something of inbound liquidity, and which is about half a Bitcoin. So like, $2,000 worth. And then I thought that what would happen is that people would buy the book and I would lose liquidity every time someone would buy it. But because for let's say every 5 people that would buy it on Lightning, 1 would open up a channel with me. So I actually have more inbound liquidity now than what I started with, because I started with like 5 or 6 channels opened up to me, and now I have like, I don't know, 10 or something. Maybe 10 or 15. So that has been no problem. That's been I haven't had any complaints from it. And I mean, the orders have been coming through, like I see them. So that's been really cool. And I mean, at least with the way I've been doing BTC Pay server is with the Luna node setup. Luna node is a virtual machine, a server that you can do. I think it's $8 a month, but you get $20 free credit when you sign up. So like you get the first 2 months free basically. And it's like a one-click thing. I really thought it was going to be complicated, and I thought I was going to, I did not think that I was in the realm of doing it. So originally what I was planning on doing was using the service called OpenNode, which seems like it's a fantastic service. It basically is it's a hosted Lightning node that or a custodial Lightning node that they receive the payments for you and do it. And so I started off with that. They seemed like a fantastic company. And I actually had them as a backup. So like when I needed to restart my BTC Pay server, I had them up, or that somebody couldn't get a routing at one point. I did have one complaint, and so I just turned that on. So I think both are fantastic options. If somebody is afraid of setting up their BTC Pay server, setting up OpenNode is like a great option as well. And then you still can, if you've got your home Lightning node, you can receive Lightning payments to it as well. So you're still, everyone's still using Lightning, so it still is like helping with the expansion of the network.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: do you have any? What advice do you have for anybody just getting into the space? Like if they're thinking about starting out in Bitcoin and they're totally confused, like what would you tell them?
Let's see. I recommend people to only stay with Bitcoin. Don't get distracted. There are a million, false gods that try and sell you and everything. So everyone I talk to, that's one of the most disappointing things about the space is having that you have to spend so much time dissuading people from the 3,000 other projects that are out there and explain why Bitcoin is, what to be focused on. So that's one thing. Be humble, listen. I'm sure there are great lists of Twitter lists of people to follow who are, fantastic resources of knowledge. I mean, Dan Held is great. Jameson Lopp, all of his material is fantastic. There are tons other. I don't want to just start naming names because I'll name some and forget others. But those are two that I just cut off the top of my head, as well as many others. That's the great. What's fantastic is at this point, I don't know if it always was, 5 years ago in Bitcoin because I wasn't there. But now there's so much information. And so much great, as much as there's, distracting information, there's also, if you can stay focused, there is, excellent information. So, stay humble, try and learn. And that's really what I started my, the BitcoinRabbi kind of presentation and identity in the end of 2018, but even though I had been already in the space or following the space for over a year, because I wasn't ready to spout out ideas yet because I was still I'm still learning and still listening, and I don't try and make myself out as an expert. I've learned a lot in the past, in the 2 years of following this space. I say, I'm not the biggest Bitcoiner. I'm not the biggest rabbi, but I am right now. I think I've got this niche position where I've, got the ideas of both.
That's awesome. And you definitely do. So if anybody wants to reach you, what would you say is the easiest way?
To reach me, I'm like on Twitter a good amount, 6 days a week, pretty much. I don't roll on Shabbos, so you won't see me on Shabbos. And
Big Lebowski reference.
Yeah, exactly. So I go offline. I turn my website actually, or at least I turn the checkout off, because I don't do business on Shabbos. But you find me on Twitter at TheBitcoinRabbi. My website is TheBitcoinRabbi. Every place that I am is TheBitcoinRabbi. So that's, TheBitcoinRabbi.com, at TheBitcoinRabbi. And there you can, you can find my book, find my video of my presentation. I like to talk to people. I like to interact. I've had like I said, overwhelmingly and exceedingly positive interactions with people in the community. So I like talking to different kinds of people about different things, and I like to I like to have a positive view of the Bitcoin industry and of the future. And I think that's one thing that really drew me to Bitcoin also, is that Bitcoin is something that in the eyes of all the people who are behind it, who are long Bitcoin, is that this will make a better, brighter, more prosperous, more peaceful world. Like, that's the goal here. And I just love that that's
Totally
what,
agreed.
I mean, I think that, some people are in it, that I want to get rich, but that's maybe more in other of in the general crypto space. But I think the real people that believe in Bitcoin believe that this is a positive if it works. I mean, it's anything could happen, and everyone's got to be safe with their finances. But if it works the way that some people dream it can be, it's a positive view of the future. And so that's also something that I like, and and that if I can help that kind of move along, that kind of fits in with everything else that I try to do in my life.
Totally agreed. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to post the link to your website in the show notes, and I'm also going to provide the your Twitter handle so people can get in touch with you. And,
awesome, that's great.
And I hope I could have you again.
Yeah, we'll see. I was talking to somebody about maybe the next book has to be something about Charlie's private keys. Kind of go the Bitcoin Money book is like an overview of Bitcoin, but we'll see. Now that we've got the story, people have been asking about a few of the people have been asking about translations and about what's coming next. So we'll see. But whenever we got a next project, I'd love to talk to you again.
Thank you very, very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I hope everybody enjoyed the interview. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter or Telegram, I'm at CoinIcarus. If you want to reach me by email, I'm funwithcrypto@protonmail.com. And I'm going to list in the show notes the BitcoinRabbi's website and his Twitter handle in case you want to get in touch with him. Thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you all next time.